the article Censorship by Elizabeth R. Purdy. This was I enjoyed the take in this article, specifically referencing the anti-war laws, not the anti-war protests and movements and propaganda and forms of entertainment being censored just leads to polarization. And I think that's an excellent example of a lot of the censorship controversy that we're seeing today. I think that this ties really well with what we're experiencing with intense pieces of artwork and pieces of artwork that push the boundaries of what is normal theater. I think that the, I mean, it being a time of war and this idea of promoting war and promoting anti-war and these two groups polarizing against each other in opposite directions. I think that it's an interesting thing to look at, because it's not something that you would necessarily think to be pertaining to every kind of situation where there's controversy regarding art forms. But I think overall, it's an article that totally lost my train of thought. I'm gonna move on to another thing that I wanted to talk about. That's my bad. In its a quote here, in its early history, the Supreme Court left it to the states to determine whether materials were obscene. I mean, we can talk about the separation of church and state all day long. I personally think that yes, I understand it to a certain extent. I also think that there are certain states that are behind the times with what is socially acceptable, and that just leads to more controversy. I think that, it's important that it addresses that, because these things being left to the state are, it polarizes in a sense, not necessarily to the extent of what anti-war and pro-war individuals experience, but it is definitely somewhat along those same lines of polarizing individuals into separate categories, and for only allowing them to see what the individuals running the state want you to see. I think in more progressive states that there is a lot more freedom available to people, and in a little bit more conservative states they promote art that is traditional, or that are classics, or just things like that aren't necessarily pushing the boundaries, but are look good, feel good type of shows that are going to bring in money because they are good shows that have been successful in the past. And I think it is limiting for groups like that, and it is, I don't want to say frustrating, but it's in a sense frustrating for individuals not going through that type of thing, because while yes, they're making new art form, I need to word that differently. While yes, these traditional art forms in these states are extremely popular and allow individuals to enjoy themselves in the theater, I think that it's just as important, if not more important, for art form shows in being created and being put up in more progressive states that are going to continue to allow people to think outside of the box, adapt with how the world is changing.